If you can possibly bootstrap your company, which means use your own money or family money or money that you can get fairly inexpensively, that's the very best choice. I was talking to a 30-year VC the other day, and he said, do everything you can do to avoid going to angel money if you must, and particularly the big VC firms, because that's going to be the most expensive money that you will ever bring into your startup. Now, some startups have to have it. They need so much money to get going that they have to go to VC right away. But if you're doing a small software startup, for example, mobile apps, something like that, doing it on your own dime will leave a lot more equity for you later on. Very few banks are going to invest in startup enterprises. And part of the thing also is you might expect that the Small Business Administration would help you out. But again, that's a very long and difficult process that many companies, young entrepreneurs especially, aren't going to be able to avail themselves of. So again, it's the money that you can raise from people that know and love you.
Also, too, with the angel and VC investing, that's money that you don't, have to, quote, pay back like on a monthly basis, like a loan from a bank. Yes, you do have to pay it back, the day you do your IPO or the day you get bought out. But it's not like, this is something that is going to affect your kind of ongoing cash flow of, making loan payments.
Angel funding supposedly is easier to get and typically comes from either individual angels, which are individual investors, or from groups of investors, sometimes known as the Band of Angels, is one of the groups here in Silicon Valley. They can be just as difficult as a venture firm to get money from, because very often many members of an angel group will all have to say, okay, they're each putting in $10,000, which is fairly small money, but they're all looking for a big return, just like a venture firm would be. But you're too small to get the interest of a big venture firm, so all you have are these angel investors. But people shouldn't think that's going to be easy. It may be that you know more people, and maybe the angels, if you're friends with them, will love you and bestow some money upon you. But for your average startup, it's just as difficult to get their money as it is to get a real venture capital firm's money, only the venture capital firm may not be making the kind of $100,000 investment that you need.
The benefits of having a VC, as one of your investors is you get a lot of support in terms of, some experts you can kind of lean on. They're going to give you advice on, not only your business plan, but also, kind of operational things, maybe even going as far as helping you to recruit like talent for your startup. So you get more than just the money.
That is also a double-edged sword, however. Bernard Khosla Ventures, who I recently wrote a story quoting, said, most of the advice you get from venture capitalists is going to be bad. In the best worlds, they do know people. They can help you find customers. They can help you do strategic partnerships for your new business. But they also get on your board, sit around at your board meetings and pontificate like they've ever actually done a startup themselves, which many of them have never actually done. His advice was to listen, our VC I talked to was take their advice and then go do what you were going to do anyway. I mean, it really is a mixed bag. Venture capitalists have the money and they make investments, but they make a zillion investments and count on 3 of them turning into being pretty good. And is that because the VC were very helpful, or is it because it was just a winning idea to begin with?
Well, I think I think the odds are a lot higher than that. One of the things that VCs will say is that they're investing in a lot of different startups, knowing that very few of them are going to actually make it. And it's one of the things that really goes against, works against what startup people are doing, or what the startup's trying to do, is because if they're just trying to build a nice business, a really good business, VCs are going to really hammer them, because there's a lot of VCs out there that aren't interested in a $50 million company. They want to invest in the next Google, and simply being the next Symantec or something like that isn't good enough for them. It's a real It's a real challenge that an entrepreneur is going to face.
Well, it's almost heresy, Mark, here in the Valley to question the venture capital kind of an economy. But if what you're trying to start is a company you're planning to work at for a while, that you want to have a long life in the industry, venture capital is always about the exit strategy. Now, it takes on the average 7 years to get from startup, first dollar spent to the IPO or a merger and acquisition. 7 years is kind of the average right now. But the VC are going to be pushing you all of those days to be implementing on your exit strategy. And if exiting isn't really what you have in mind, you need to find some different money.
Well, I think that's very true, and I think a lot of people don't really realize that. Most startups aren't going to become, those huge companies and those huge wins that the venture people are looking for. And one of the things that can come out of this is it might be that venture money is not what you want. Depending on what your overall goal is. If you're not looking to go public and you're not looking to cash out with $100 or $200 million or something like that, then VC money may not really be the thing to do. You're better off looking for self-financing, bootstrapping, and then getting some angels involved, and then making sure you have a path to profitability so you can reinvest your profits into the business and keep building it. We need to remember that Silicon Valley really loves to focus on venture funding and on making the big money, but most businesses that are started in the United States today don't pursue that path. And their founders are still making really good money.
You have to be.
SAS, you look at SAS, and that's a good example of a company that's doing, it's Fortune 500 company, and yet it's still private,
Right.
So.
You have to be very careful where your venture money comes from for just that reason. The big name venture firms, the firms that you have already heard of, probably aren't the best choice. They're the people who get all the business plans, and that's part of the reason they want to keep a high profile, so that if anything comes by and they see it's worthwhile, they can snatch it up early. But the average company needs to find probably a venture company they didn't know about going in, who invests in their space, has a number of profitable medium-sized businesses that they've been working with, and can provably bring in partners, maybe employees, other investors. And again, these are people who, in the words of a VC friend of mine, keep their mouths shut and their heads down working for their portfolio companies. You mentioned, though, Kickstarter and these other crowdsource money, and that may be even better because you're not getting into debt to all of your friends and all of your credit cards. So if you can get that kind of money, there's a lot to be said for it, but you are expected to deliver.
I suppose we all can get a little self-deprecating and say, well, anyone who invests in me is a fool, even though I have a good idea. But, you do want smart people involved. And so if you're going to, whether it's an angel investor or a venture fund or somebody, friend or a family, any money you take is going to come with strings. And so you want to make sure that the people those strings are attached to are going to be able to contribute in some way, even beside the money, because you're going to hear from them. It's very hard to imagine a scenario where you're going to take money from somebody, even if it's your parents or your siblings or something like that, and they're not going to want to have some kind of voice in what you're doing. So, you're going to have to be doing a lot of educating with those people. But again, if they're smart people, they could help you.
It's a lot like a marriage with children, and these investors are your in-laws. Even if you get divorced, you have the children, the company, and those in-laws are going to be around sticking their noses in for a very long time. So when you take somebody's money, particularly if you give them some of your equity, expect to be dealing with them, darn near forever, unless you develop a big bank account and can buy them out at some point.
And I think the one other thing you've got to think about is what is going to happen to your relationship if things go south. They're giving you a shot in the arm, showing their faith in you by giving you X thousands of dollars. But thousands of dollars is thousands of dollars. And you have to make really sure that if your business does not work out and the people who have given you that money and invested that money lose that money, you probably want to make sure you've talked that through with them ahead of time. Actually, I'm sure you want to talk that through with them ahead of time, because the last thing that you really want to happen is,
Hi.
on top of your business failing, is to have a relationship broken or damage like that done.